Welcome to The Fix. Sit down with copywriting experts Nick O'Connor and Glenn Fisher as they review, discuss, and improve real-world copy sent in by you. This is The Fix.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Fix. My name's Nick O'Connor, and emerging from the murky depths of LinkedIn is Glenn Fisher. How are you, Glenn? You're looking a little bit tired today.
I am slightly tired. The new Bret Easton Ellis novel arrived yesterday, and I'm determined to read it extremely fast. He's one of the reasons I started writing. Interestingly, he's not written a novel for about 16 years or something like that. So I was up quite late reading quite a lot of it, and have been reading it this morning. Then I had to have my hair cut, but I will be reading it again after this. But yeah, so that's probably why I'm a bit tired.
It's a fascinating insight into your life. Shall we review some copy?
Let's do that, yes.
You've got an absolute ton of copy to get through, so you can expect a lot of episodes of The Fix over the next few weeks. Right, I'm going to dive straight into it and read it aloud, and then we'll see how we can improve things. I think this is a piece of email copy that would link through to a landing page of some sort. Okay, it begins. He was found on the floor, almost dead. But for the timely intervention of his son, who came to pick up something at home, he would have died. Jakob was a retired army officer and was very active and strong. Even after 10 years of retirement, he routinely goes for a walkout every morning. He could walk for miles without any signs of tiredness. You might say he's living up to the popular saying, once a soldier, always a soldier. Jakob ticked that box. Whenever he goes out for a walk with his children, he almost left them behind. Even his peers knew him for that. Because of his activeness, nobody ever thought he could easily fall sick. Plus the fact that he goes for a monthly checkup at the military clinic. Until he was found, almost lifeless, and rushed to a nearby clinic where he was resuscitated with first aid intervention before being moved to their family hospital where he was given proper treatment. Mr. Jakob escaped death. His family survived the scare. If not, what could have become of them, since he's the breadwinner of the family? But what could have caused Jakob's health problem that left him at the point of death? Heart attack. No doubt exercises, routine checkups, and not eating fatty foods are the best way to avoid sudden heart attacks or even death. But how many of us know if we are at risk of sudden attacks even if we exercise? Just like Jakob, who ate healthily and stayed active but was still hit by a heart attack. Many have died in their sleep while walking or socializing. Heart attacks hit without notice. A recent survey conducted by a group of researchers at Harvard University shows that out of 100% of patients with heart problems, only 35% are aware of their condition. And of this percentage, only 10% detect their condition early. What this means is that nobody knows whether you're at risk of a heart attack or if your heart is in good condition. But here's exciting news on how you could cut the risks of a heart attack by 95%. Because there is a new technology device that helps you monitor what's going on with your heart health. This new technology device identifies any potential red flags or danger with your heart, which gives you first-hand information to visit or alert your doctor in time. The best part is you can take this device everywhere you go, while running, while bathing, cooking, or swimming. This new technology is not a phone. It's not like any heavy devices you might think of. If you want to know what this technology device is, click the Learn More button to get the full gist. Glenn, I think we should have a conversation about the role of stories within a sales pitch, because
it wants to lead us that way, doesn't it?
Well, this is so, to kind of summarize, we know, the strong parts of this copy. We know, roughly speaking, what we're selling. That was obvious by the end. I think we know about the kind of target that they're going for, because it's kind of lots of people who might be worried about heart attacks. There was a story with a small payoff to that story that linked in a slight way to the product. So it kind of had the elements that we know we need to craft a successful piece of copy, I would say, like the raw ingredients. I think the combination of those ingredients is slightly unbalanced. And I think that is down to the fact that perhaps the story goes on slightly too long.
Yeah.
But I think that's an excuse to talk about why you would even tell a story in a piece of copy and how long that story should be, because we're told in a sort of cliche fashion that, oh, well, all selling is stories, and stories are a critical part of all sales pitches. You know, we say that ourselves, but there's more to it than that. There's more of a nuance to it, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, the short answer is cut your story down by 50%, which you could easily do that here. You could probably do it more, but that would be quite rudimentary advice. I actually still think it's valid advice for this particular instinct, but why is that? Why is that the case, as you say? And yeah, everything's a story. Tell stories. It's generic, prosaic advice that you hear so much in the world of copy, certainly on LinkedIn posts and all that kind of crap. The first thing that's first present in mind when you say that is, so I'm just going to say this, it's not naturally the first thing that will probably come up, but I think what people fail to understand sometimes, especially in copy like this, is that telling a story is one thing, but you have to spread a story out, and you have to breadcrumb through that story sales techniques and persuasion techniques and calls to action, and you need to give people a reason to read on in a sales story more than you necessarily would, insert massive debate about fiction writing here, but more than you necessarily would in that world, because just the pure intrigue of why this guy is having a heart attack, or why this guy seems healthy or what have you, isn't enough in a extreme in an email where you have extreme attention deficit disorder potentially happening. Like when you sit down with a novel to read a story, you can see physically there's 300 pages coming. In an email, you are being attacked. There's 15 emails, there's phones here, there's emails popping up here. You haven't got that time to do just, so you're not going to go, I've opened my inbox. This guy, he seems healthy. Why isn't he? I don't know that I've got that problem. So that's why it's so important in an email piece, in a sales piece, to breadcrumb so many of those other sales techniques through a story. And I think that's what, so when we say cut it down by 50%, it doesn't necessarily mean get rid of all the story. It just means you need to, you might need to intrapolate. That's not a real word, but the opposite of what extrapolate is. You need to put little bits in the story to make sure that it still flows. Then, like, get rid of 50% of it after that kind of thing.
I actually wondered, I think there's two ways you could use this story. One involves cutting it down and the other involves expanding it. Okay, so the first thing to ask yourself is, why are we telling this story? Why this story? Because it's really just a story of a healthy man having a heart attack.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I would say, if it's just, there's no real open loop here, there's no mystery to what happened, and he wasn't saved by the product, so far as I can see. So the argument for cutting it down would be, you're making a point about the fact that we all fear we'll keel over. We'll be one of those people that didn't know we had a problem, will suddenly have a heart attack, and there we go, game over. Okay, so that's a very direct pitch. Yeah. Within the context of that, you're tapping into my anxiety. I would say this story should be 2 paragraphs. It should open the sudden pain in the arm, the vice-like tension around your chest. It's the moment we all fear, a sudden heart attack. So you could write it in the second person to the reader and then say, it's exactly what happened to Jakob. He was healthy, he could walk really far. In fact, he could outwalk his children. Then one day he keeled over. He had a heart attack. It came out of nowhere. So he could, okay, I'm paraphrasing it. Some of the writing was way better than what I just said, but you could boil it down to that. You actually don't need any more in that pitch. It's just, he is an example of what we all fear. He just becomes an emblem of it. And then you can say, it's more likely than you think, because the thing that really caught my eye was the Harvard thing. Only 35% of people are aware of their heart condition, which written another way would be 65% of people with a heart condition don't even know they have it. Could be you. You know, that's a more powerful way. So you could say the terrible feeling in the chest, the vice-like feeling, you're having a heart attack. This is exactly what happened to Jakob. Bang, bang, bang. He was one of the 65% of people, Harvard tell us, are at risk of a heart attack and don't even know it. You could be one of them too. But the good news is there's a way out of, there's a way of living your life without this hanging over you. It's this device. That's the short version. Okay. Sorry, it took a long time to say it, but the story just becomes a way of ticking a box of showing that this does happen, and it happens to real people, even healthy people.
I think that maybe I was just to be fair on the thing. I think because I'm thinking Aristotle and I'm thinking Tarantino.
Of course you are. Of course you are.
Yeah, it's just natural. But once upon a time, it would have been Aristotelian kind of start in the middle of the story. That's how you start with drama. These days, more relatable, probably Tarantino does that, where you see the head in the box kind of thing. And I think that he was found dead on the floor, almost dead, aims to do that in a very pure, almost fictionalized, filmic way of storytelling. But again, it goes back to that, as you're saying, you're opening a loop. That would open a loop in a film maybe, and you'd be like, okay, I'll watch on. But again, because it is a sales piece, let's not avoid that. It can't be all like, oh, it's all storytelling, pixies in the sky and all this kind of. You've got to get how does it relate to the product? How does it relate to what's happening? And that's where your addition of the heart attack thing, it just puts it right in where you're going eventually. When you get to the call to action, when you get to the product, you've got to get in the right mood for the sale, not just in the right mood for the sale, and that at the moment doesn't do that.
And so that's not the only way of doing it, but it's one way, right? It's a way of saying to ourselves, actually, this isn't a story pitch. The story is just a way of underlining and illustrating a deeper anxiety that my prospect might have, in which case it does not need to be a page long. It just doesn't. It needs to be as short as possible. It's what you would call a vignette. How can you get in and out of that story with colorful, vivid language that, you know, it's going to really pack a punch. You know, it's not like he was healthy, but he had a heart attack. It's got to have all this richness that we've got, but it's got to be in two paragraphs, six sentences, say, bang, very short. If we're not going to do that, it's going to be longer. Something about this story has to compel me to read on to the very end. There has to be an open loop. So it has to be, I actually don't know what the open loop with this could be. I think that's why the story drags a wee bit, because it's a story of a man having a heart attack. Now, if it was, you set him up that he wasn't found on the floor almost dead, so you don't telegraph that he was a healthy man, but he had a hidden problem. You can't, you know, so you set him up as a before and after. Healthy, walks all the time, very, very fit. Little did he know his life was about to change in a way that affects millions of people all over the world, maybe even you. So that's an open loop, right? It's a mild one, but it says, I'm not going to tell you what the thing that changed his life was until I've told you some more about what I want to tell you about. So that kind of breaks the story up and forces you to say, okay, that second part of the story needs to pay off and close that loop. By the time I close that loop and tell you what happened to him, I need to be a little bit more solid. I actually think it's quite hard to do with this story, but that story is a completely different way of structuring the pitch. It's a longer thing with an open loop rather than just an emblem of a deeper problem. Do you know what I mean? I think it needs to be one thing or the other. Both can work.
Yeah, I also think this is a case where the story is, it's perhaps holds the reader too far away from the story. A good story, you relate to the character, you lean in, you feel part of that story. You might feel like you with the main character, the hero of it, or the enemy, or what have you, or you can feel something to it. This feels a little bit too far away from that, and I think again it comes back to, remember, we are selling, and it's you've got to put the reader into that, like how does that go? And it's just a little bit too far in that kind of this Mr. Jakob that we're following along. There's not enough pulling me into the story going, like me, he did this, like you, he did that kind of thing. And I think if you did it that way, where you extended the story as you suggest there, that's where you could come in with, perhaps like you, he ate healthily, he did this, he did all of these things right. So how come all of a sudden something went really wrong, kind of thing?
How come he was one of the thousands of people that Harvard, I can't remember what it was, just Harvard, say are at risk of sudden death or whatever, you know, like bring some proof in. So the reader starts to ask himself, yeah, well, what was it? What was it? And how is it? Like, that is me. Yeah, I think I'm healthy. I'm like him. So why did he suddenly? I think there's an element of drama there that actually the way this copy works, read the opening 2 lines. Okay, so it doesn't have any you, it doesn't bring me along. The opening line says he was found on the floor almost dead. Okay, there's drama. Okay, what's going on? But for the timely intervention of his son, who came to pick up something at home, which is a bit of a wordy sentence, he would have died. So we know now he doesn't die. So the drama is actually dissipated at that point. So this is about a man who doesn't die now. Yeah. You see what I mean? Like, so not only am I not necessarily a part of it, because we don't want to sound cynical that you must bring the reader in. You should attempt to bring the reader into every piece of copy, but there is copy out there that just lets the story go. But if you're just going to do that, the story has to drag me along. My natural desire to know what happens at the end.
Yeah.
To be sort of stoked, that curiosity factor. If you tell me on the second line that so it was okay, he almost died, but then his son came home and he didn't die. Okay, right.
Bye.
Yeah, so you've lowered the stakes for me.
Yeah.
Whereas if it read, he's on the Jakob's on the floor in front of you, dead. I don't know why I said it like that, but try and make it more immediate. You know, Jakob thought he was dying, or whatever it might have been. That just has a little bit more drama, and that can be used to pull the reader along.
Yeah, we said this as well recently, which I've decided is a deep insight and a good thing to repeat. But when you were talking about cutting down stuff, you don't cut down stuff just for the cutting. You realize that because there is so much to say and you haven't got a lot of time, so you have to cut things down that you can then add back to them and add the stuff that you're missing. And I think that's what happens so often in stories, is that you think, oh, well, I've got to tell all this story. It's like, no, it's you've got to tell the emotions behind it and the triggers and everything. The story is there to allow you to do that in a good way. So you have to break it down, cut it down, and then add the bits back in. So you can get a really effective sentence like that, Jakob dead on the floor kind of thing. It's the Hemingway 6-word new shoes, or what is it, baby boy?
Baby's shoes, no, for sale, baby's shoes.
For sale, baby shoes, never worn, that's it. And it's like, that says so much in
microfiction. Yeah.
And that's because you've taken that whole story out and you've drilled it down to exactly each of those words, or those 3 little phrases are saying so much rather than explaining it. And I think that's what you need to do here.
That is, do you know what? That's a good little piece of advice as a takeaway. I actually think that's called flash fiction or nano fiction, because microfiction is like a couple of pages, I think. I could be being pedantic about the categories, but I like reading stuff like that. And for Christmas, I bought Gemma a book of flash fiction where all of the stories are a page or 2 long. And I bought it for her because, you know, she's busy with the kids. They're always distracting her. It's really hard to sit down and immerse in a novel. But if you have 3 minutes free because they've gone upstairs to do something, you can read a little short story and you get a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it gives you a nice, you know, hit of that was interesting. The writers of that really, really short fiction, flash fiction, 1-sentence fiction, things like that, those are the stories to study as a copywriter, because they are operating on a level of brevity that we probably have to try and emulate. It's far closer to what we have to do, even in a sales letter that might be 10,000 words long, as that's what I spend most of my time writing. The actual story elements, the vignettes you're going to tell, are going to be much closer to nano, micro, flash fiction than they are the hero's arc in a novel.
Yeah,
that is true. So actually, if you're studying that sort of writing, you're going to learn a bit more about how quickly can I tell this story. And to go back to the original point, you have to ask yourself, why am I telling this story? I'm telling this story to make the reader to raise, this is going to sound cynical, to raise the level of anxiety in the reader's mind about their health, about the fact that they could be at risk of a sudden heart attack. That is what this story is there to do. Bold as you like saying it like that, but it's true. How long does that story need to be to evoke the feeling and the emotion that I want to evoke in my reader? You have to be really, okay, maybe I have 20 seconds. Okay, that's how short it has to be then. That's the challenge now. That's what good writing then becomes. How quickly can I tell that story with vivid color, absolute clarity, memorability, all of those things.
I'd argue that there's no, like, what if I only had 20 seconds? You only have 20 seconds. If that.
No, but that's not true. For instance, in a different sales letter where you're telling the origin story of a product.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Say,
Sorry. I thought you meant like in a piece of email copy or whatever. Yeah.
But like you're asking yourself, why am I telling you this? Well, okay, if it's about the sustainability of coffee beans and they're already interested in them and they're sustainably minded, maybe the story of how it gets from the farm to your cup is a story worth telling, and it can be slightly, and so that can be a different length and a different style. So it's about identifying the motivation behind why you're telling the story. I didn't mean every, of course it is.
But I think that's a good point. It is. It's, you've got to figure out when you've got chance to tell a story, tell it. You still got to tell it efficiently and effectively to keep people reading, because then we're changing copy from writing email copy to then you're into the world of SEO and engagement. Once someone's on the website, you might want to keep them on the website for Google purposes so that they can see that they're engaged and staying on your website longer. So you need to keep that story being read through. So how do you do that? It needs to be propulsive. It needs to hold information back. It needs to do that. How do you do that? By loading that story, and you're now loading it with good, interesting things and what have you. But yeah, so the key thing is what you're taking away from study flash fiction, study that stuff that's actually there keeping people engaged with as little as possible, because no matter how big that gets, you're still the same principle's going to run out, kind of thing. It's going to go across the length of any piece of copy. Absolutely.
Glenn, I wonder if we should wrap things up.
Yeah, we should do before I am pitched into complete and utter darkness. It's like the witching hour episode where I started with my window. We did this before, and I what time is it? 4:45. But the sun has just disappeared, and now I'm just in like a weird.
Well, the sun has been setting behind me as well, actually. Although it looks sort of quite beautiful.
Yeah, I need to get one of those things on my screen, don't I?
That's a green screen, by the way. It's incredible things. Anyway, before we sign off, so you can expect a lot more episodes of The Fix. We've got an inbox full of copy. Please do keep sending your copy in. Remember, it's free. You can get in touch at feedback@thefixcopywriting.com. Send us your copy. We'll send you feedback just like this. If you want to get more feedback like this, check out the Fix Accelerator. This is our sort of members only group. We do all sorts of different stuff as part of it. I won't go into it all now, but one of the things that we do is a weekly live session where we will literally give as much feedback as we can in the time available to us. There's no limit on it. You can keep coming back every week with more copy. It's not a problem in the slightest. The reason Glenn and I have to sign off now is we both need to get ready because we're going to Leeds tomorrow to meet up with Fix Accelerator members from the north and from Leeds. Anyway, I thought we should sign off with a message from one of our Fix Accelerator members, because we have been sharing those videos in the last week or so. And I thought, why not sign off, Glenn, with a message from one of our subscribers?
We can do that. I presume you're going to ask me to edit it so that the video comes up after this.
I'm telling you, yes.
Yeah, no, I rather than you're not going to suddenly read it out like, "Dear Nick and Glenn, we have got this thing." No,
let's sign off with a message from Matt, who's one of the members of the Fix Accelerator. Send us your copy in. We'll do as many of these as you like, and we'll see you again for another episode of the Fix very soon. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
See you soon.
Hi everyone, I'm Matt. I'm a freelance copywriter. I'd like to tell you a little bit about this fantastic copywriting community I I'm part of called the Fix Accelerator. I joined it at the very beginning, and it's without doubt been the best decision of my copywriting career. When I first came across it and I read the landing page and I saw the price, I honestly thought it was a typo and they'd missed a zero off the end, because the things they're offering, I've seen these in other copywriting communities and they cost hundreds, if not thousands of pounds or dollars. So the value you get from Fix Accelerator is worth far beyond the monthly fee. It's almost too good to be true. So I'll tell you a few reasons why I think it's such a good investment. Firstly, you've got the masterclasses run by Nick and Glenn, who are two of the UK's top copywriters. The thing I love about these is that they go into so much depth. Other courses I've done, they're pretty generic, pretty surface level. They serve a purpose for introducing the basics, but they're only going to take you so far. But these masterclasses are what can really take you from being a decent copywriter to a very good one, because they're zoning on those finer details and that really elevate your copy. They show you how to think like a copywriter rather than just giving you a set of rules to follow like other courses that I've seen. And it's all explained in a way that's really accessible to even to new copywriters. Then you've got the industry insights, where they interview other leading copywriters. This is really good to get different perspectives from across the industry. Nick and Glenn are from direct response. That's their expertise, but they interview people from advertising and branding and all that sort of thing. So you're getting insights from across the full spectrum of the industry. I'll share the biggest way that I've benefited from the Fix Accelerator though. So I actually got some work from this group. Kane Smith, another top copywriter who is involved in it, posted some contracts up in the group. I said I was interested and he referred me to a client and I got the contract. So I got some work from this group, but that's not all, because then I sent the draft to Nick and Glenn to review. This is something they do for all the members of the community. You can send in as much copy as you want. And I've sent in quite a few pieces to be reviewed. They will go through it, explain ways you can improve it, and again, the thinking behind it all, so that your copy becomes better. It gives you that really practical, tailored feedback that you take forward and improve. That's how it really improves you as a copywriter, that specific feedback. So not only that though, not only do you improve from it, when I sent this copy back into the client, the copy that I had reviewed, they really liked it and they wanted to work with me again, which that might not have happened without the experts casting their eye over it and fine-tuning it. So a really concrete example of how the Fix Accelerator has boosted my career as a copywriter. I've no doubt everything I'm learning here is going to set me well on the path to success, much quicker than I could have done on my own. I really can't recommend it highly enough for anyone looking to grow their copywriting career. Cheers, and I'll hopefully see you in there.
That's all for this episode, but if you'd like to get your copy reviewed, or you've seen some copy you want Nick and Glenn's opinion on, get in touch at feedback@thefixcopywriting.com. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and share.